John, we need a monocle. You the monocle. Hold on. There.
Oh, is this part of the Hangouts?
Yes, it's a feature.
Yes.
Ah.
We're
All right,
gonna,
fellas. Well, you have fun pearl mongering. I will let y'all get back to that.
now you know that we always invite you.
I know, but it seemed like I got extra invited today.
I know. We always kick off the meeting with you.
Well,
It's kind of like tonight with Danger Ian.
Danger Ian is gonna say exit 0.
Exit 0. Awesome. Okay.
I will talk to you later, buddies.
Awesome. Man, give that man 2 monocles.
I can't give him 2 monocles.
John, you are so dapper. You need 2 monocles.
Is dapper the right word?
This is a.
I'm gonna go. I went ahead and I injected him. He couldn't get out, so I funded him out. All right. Well, folks, here we are at the beginning of Perl Mongers, August 2015. I am your host, Tommy Butler. We're gonna have like a lightning talk at the beginning about test-driven development and about the direction we want to take the next few meetings, about some goals and themes here that we, a little mini vision that we've got here in our brains, a little brainchild. So we want to say thank you for watching and attending today to all of our viewers and contestants. So in attendance today on location, we've got our buddies and we got our friends online as well. Let's go ahead and kick off with the screen share. We're going to go ahead and start right away with test-driven development. Okay. Now, can you guys let me know if you're able to see the screen all right? Okay. Awesome. Hey, thank you, Miniature Junior Pearl Programmer. So one of our initiatives is to involve the next generation of Perl programmers. Much more, be much more engaged. I got involved in Perl at the tender age of 20, and I have children now that I'd like to expose them to programming concepts and stuff. Perl is a pathway I think is a good way to do that. And so they come to our meetings, and I want to encourage everybody to bring friends online and on location. Friends of any age. Like I said in today's announcement, it doesn't matter if they're, very young or very old. Let's bring in some friends and expose people to programming concepts that aren't necessarily Perl developers or even developers at all. Let's evangelize and reach out. After all, we're an open source language, and I think and believe strongly in open source. We'll bounce that idea around more and more in our mailing list and, get feedback about how much focus we want to place on that and how much emphasis we want to push in that direction. But I would like to see more participation from folks beyond our core constituency. But what you can see today is going to be a really quick and simple thing. Because we're going to explain core concepts, we're going to stick with some very simple things. On your laptop, if you've brought a laptop or if you're following along, it's going to be very helpful if you can install something called a tool chain. That is the first concept that we're going to work on, I think, probably next month. and the month following and the month following, we're going to work on building up the pieces of your Perl toolchain so that you're actually able to start developing Perl seriously. The Perl toolchain starts with the environment where you're programming, and then from there, your Perl and the installation of your Perl. And then after that, your modules and the tools in Perl that you use to support your development, the Perl tool. Then after that, your editor, your integrated development environment like Sublime or Vim or Emacs, whatever it might be. And after that, after you've got your tool chain together, your testing framework. After your testing framework, your development mechanism and revision control. And after revision control, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous deployment. And that is this life cycle of development, and that's the way that I would like to steer our talks. I would like to have folks raise their hand and say, hey, I'd like to talk about setting up an editor. John Dexter, you've got a wicked Vim setup. Your Vim setup is pretty cool. It would be cool to hear from people about, more on continuous integration, continuous testing, further on down the line. I can talk more about the toolchain testing framework with Distilla and packaging things up with Distilla. I'd love to talk about that. Again, I'm not an expert, but I've packaged up a few modules of my own, set them up to the CPAN using Distilla, and it's great. So test-driven development is important because when you provide a piece of software, you need to know that it's always going to work and respond in a certain way, given a certain input, no matter what. And so the first thing you do after you write a program is you write a test to make sure that whatever you put in comes out exactly as expected. So it's expected that you have 3 components. Component number 1, your program. Component number 2, supporting libraries. Component number 3, your tests. That's it. And then you run your tests after any kind of revision to your program. When you add features, you add a new test to make sure that that feature works. When you change something, you update your test. If somebody submits a bug report, you fix the bug and you add a test to make sure that that bug never happens again. That way, it never happens again. You never regress into that bug, and so we call that regression testing. So here on my screen, you can see a little bit. Let's go ahead, and I've got a directory here called no cloud. It doesn't sync to anything out on the cloud. Then in here I've got my projects, and they're not synced to the cloud because they're all synced to GitHub. And I've got some stuff here. Let's make one called Perl Mongers. There's nothing here. So typically, like I said, when you're starting off, you're going to start off with your 3 components. Your program, your libraries, and your test framework. That's how it typically looks right there, as you see it on my screen. Is the font big enough for everybody to see? All right, awesome. So they're in lib. Now, when you're testing something, you have to test an interface. You have to test something that provides an output of some sort, whether it's in RAM, whether it's a web output, whether it's a REST API, whatever. You have to be able to test what that output is. It might even be a data structure. It might be a reference. It might be a hash reference. It might be an integer. You need to make sure it is what you expect it to be. So instead of me, setting up a web application to test right now on the fly, let's just make a little simple module. It's going to be a slam dunk. It's the easiest thing to test is a module interface, I guess. So here's a module. Did somebody turn down the display there?
Did you hit that black code in the door?
The display, our projector seems to have gone like almost dark. Anyhow.
Oh, the one in the back room is okay.
That's kind of how we had it.
Is that where we were? Yeah. Oh, you're right. So,
for some reason, it really dimmed. Did it get too hot? Does it get too hot?
Yeah.
The bulb gets too hot and turns down. That's kind of tricky because I'm not mirroring my displays, but that's fine. I like Moose. It's not as slow as people say. So here we have a module, and if you're using Moose, it's a great meta object framework that lets you do all kinds of awesome things without having to use classic Perl OO, and you can get modern object-oriented features just simply via using Moose. So here in our module, we're going to define a couple attributes and types, and that's it. So a DFW Perl Monger is going to have whoa, Vim's going crazy on me. Now, we can have a Moose talk again and again and again, but we're not going to do that today to explain what's going on here. Okay, I've been going back and forth between this Lenovo and the Mac keyboard so much lately that it's becoming a challenge. I wonder if that make immutable call returns 1 and the 1 is redundant right there. I'm getting some beeps here. Let me check the message window. It looks like we might be getting some Q&A. Maybe a chat. Can somebody follow the chat?
I am following the chat.
Awesome. Okay. I just want to comment again how awesome it is that you're upside down, X. Okay, so here we've got a module. Now, let's make sure there's no problem with the module. And it compiles. Awesome, we've got a great module. So we've got an app. Actually, the better way. And this is assuming the module isn't installed. We have a monger among us tonight who is 9 years old. What's your name tonight? What's your name tonight?
Marie. How is my name? Two more kids' names. My time. She's name is next time. How do you have to
Can I do that? I haven't done it in a little while. I'm not sure if the version right there. You know what, I'm not sure I have that recently installed. I just want to be able to say, okay, cool. So if I use my module, cool, it does what I want it to do. So let's go over into our T directory. In the T directory, there's nothing. So here we are. Let's write a test. We're going to call it interface.t for the module. Just the basic interface. You can break it down into much more complicated things and much more complicated tests, but that's not the point of tonight's little lightning talk. Right, we're using test simple. When you use test simple, you need to tell it how many tests you're going to run, because that's one of the tests. One of the tests is that it needs to know that it ran as many tests as it was supposed to. Otherwise, it knows that it failed. So right off the bat, it requires you to tell it how many tests you planned, and that's called your test plan. Now, when you're using test simple, you don't really need to say use lib like I did over here in the other program, because the test framework called prove already knows what to do. It's going to use that, it's going to put that in the environment variable, adding, and it's not going to be a problem for us. So we can just basically here say we can just use DFW Perl Monger. Now, in test simple, if you look at the documentation, which we will, you just ask it, when you ask it to run a test, is it okay or is it not okay? If it's not okay, you fail. If it's okay, then you pass. And it's that simple. So we call it test simple. For example, now this is an example of very robust testing, okay? The reason why is because we've hard-coded value parameters into the and attributes for this object instance right here into the test. They could be arbitrary. It's not exactly solid best practice, but you know, this is an example here. Something better might look like this. Come on. So I just added an extra test. We're going to have to come up and adjust the test plan to 3 tests. Now, we could basically say, you know, we could do this. Make it a little bit more robust. Again, we're going to have names that may contain more than POSIX alphanumerical characters. Especially if they're a string, they can contain whatever we want, all kinds of stuff. But this is an example of something that's just slightly more robust. So here in test simple, when we do this, we basically say, all right, here's the condition. If it evaluates to true, it's a pass. And the second argument is basically the name of the test. And you'll see how that plays into the output in a moment. Let's run that through the Perl interpreter and see if it compiles without warnings and errors. Okay, yeah, it couldn't find the module because I didn't put a use lib in there, but thanks, John. We do have 4. Okay, now down here on line 14, this is kind of a Perlism. The double negation operator forces a statement to be evaluated in Boolean context. It's a cool little string, or a cool little ism that basically says, evaluate the next thing in it is true or it is false. So the next statement says, it is this or it is not. True or false? I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure. But for example, right here, if for example here, when I do an integer, if I call int test monger age, the output's going to be 9, because int is kind of like casting. It's going to you're telling if I said int 9.1 or whatever, it's going to give me a 9 or what have you. It's kind of casting the argument, or if it was a string 9, it's going to cast it to an integer 9. It's going to force it to be an integer type. So here, if we say bang bang int, it's going to say, is this an integer or not? Basically, and it's going to give you the number 1.
That's what, yeah.
Otherwise, if you give it like, yeah, I mean, we could play with this just for fun. Okay, so that's what we get if we give it a string. That's what we get if we give it an integer that's a non-zero. So if we give it a true integer, it's a non-zero integer. So I guess if we set our age to 0, the test would fail, because it's a true-false test. So there's a logic fail there. I messed up. Fail on me. But we'll let it lie for now. Let's let it gel. Yeah, it's a cool, handy little thing there. Just be aware and what you're doing there. It's called the Boolean operator, even though it's not really an operator. two operators. It's the not. Okay, so now we've got an application, which is the first component of test-driven development. We're using our module. We've got a test that basically tests what the application is consuming, which is a library. And we're testing the interface. So in order to do that, if we need to make sure we've installed Test Simple, if you've got your tool chain set up, you'll have cpan- installed, and I do. If I do this, it's probably going to go out and say I need a newer version and download the newer version. So here we go. Let's wait. Hooray. Okay, so I've got Test Simple. After you've installed a test, something like this, Test Simple, Test More, and I'd love to talk more about Test More because it's really awesome. It's got lots of cool features because it's got more. But after you've installed one of these test thingies, and there actually is a module called just Test, which you can use, which is limited and clunky and annoying. But after you've installed something like that, you get this. You can prove. And as long as you type that prove command, it's going to detect the presence of this T directory, test directory. It's going to find this. It's going to find that T directory, and it's going to run anything in it that ends in a T. So I put this app in, or the 00 interface.t, I put it in the wrong spot. Put it in the T directory. Now we have our test in there. Why did I put zeros in there?
Order you want to run them in.
The order I want to run my tests in. Now, for example, let's say I'm doing tests on files. And I do a test that manipulates a file in a certain way in test number 1. And I expect it to be in that condition in test number 2. Well, you would want your test to be ordered. That's one way. Somebody might want to reach through the internet and slap me in the head for saying that, but there are other reasons that are even more valid than that. Why ordering your tests is important. So ordering your tests like that is a convention that you're going to often see when you're looking at test suites for anything. So all we have to do is go prove at this point, and it's going to say whether or not I pass. Okay, so maybe I was wrong about the library. Come back here. Oh, geez, pay attention. I'm going to tell it where to look for my libraries. Okay, there. So it ran all my tests. It says it ran one file, 4 tests. That's how much CPU and time it took, and all of them passed. Now, you can do a Perl doc prove, and you can see that there's an easy V. And when I run prove V, look what it did. It checked to see if the name got set, if the age was a string, if the age got set, if the age was an integer. I can continue on in my development and on in my life knowing that anytime I add a feature, I can come back and just type prove, and every single time, as long as everything passes, I never screwed up a previous feature. It's beautiful. This is why we do test-driven development, and this is why when you go to the CPAN and you're publishing code for the world, you need to know that you didn't mess up someone else's code. This is how you make sure you don't, or this is how you do your best to make sure you don't break someone else's stuff. This is your way to help yourself and to help other people not break interfaces. And that is the end of today's test-driven development life cycle lightning talk. All right. Does anybody want to comment? Ask questions.
Do you typically write the test after you've written your libraries, or?
The question was, do I typically write my tests before or after I write my libraries? The purist will say, write them before. I write them after. I write them after. Because sometimes I don't figure out what I want my module to do and how I want it to do it until I'm done actually writing the code.
Yeah.
Because I'll be halfway in here and I'll go, oh my gosh, this was completely crackheaded. I'm doing this wrong. So I'll fix it, and after I've successfully implemented an interface, then I'll go back and test it and find out that it wasn't so successful, and iterate on that. Any other questions?
What's your strategy for developing tests for your modules? What do you do when you're going through each of your libraries and you say, well, I definitely need a test for this, and a test for this, and a test for this?
That's a good question. So the question was, how do you know basically how do you know what to test for? Everything stupid. Everything stupid. Everything that somebody could possibly do to break your interface. That's what you need to test for. And all expected scenarios. Like I said in the very beginning, you need to make sure that your interface responds exactly like it's expected to respond. So when you implement your interface, you have an idea in your brain of how it's supposed to behave. Write your test with that in mind so that it behaves exactly like you expect. Then write some extra tests that say, well, what happens if I throw it a 0? What happens if I throw it a negative integer? What if I divide by 0?
Yes, part of your question was, when do you write them? Right? So there are tests that you write, which are the stock use cases. Divide by 0, right? Out of range, wrong type, which apply to almost every single time you pass in a value, right? But the interesting tests to me, you write them at the time you're thinking about the problem that particular subroutine, for instance, is solving, right? So while your brain is in that space, write the test while you totally understand what that code's doing, right? Because if you want to come back later and write tests for that, they are going to be mentally abstracted from where you were, and it's not going to be the same quality of test. Or you'll test for different stuff, basically.
One of the beautiful things about the CPAN, one of the many beautiful things about the CPAN is the CPAN tester service. Anybody familiar with this? CPAN tester service? When you upload code to the CPAN, it gets fired off to everybody who tests code. If they've got a Solaris machine, they test it on their Solaris machine, whatever version it is. Or if they've got a stack of virtual machines or whatever, there are a whole bunch of people who volunteer and download modules from the CPAN regularly as soon as they hit. And some of them like to just pay attention to the hip and cool ones on the new kids on the block that are awesome, like DBIX class, and they're constantly testing those. But even your lowly module will always get tested. The CPAN tester service will test on every platform, and it's great to see how awful it's going to break so many times, and it's going to teach you how to go back and fix it so that it works in all of those conditions. Now, I told the story to one of my friends this morning, that I'll tell you guys, because I think it's kind of funny. It's about testing. Early on in the days of one of my longer-lived Perl libraries that's been on the CPAN for a long time, I've always written tests because that's what you're supposed to do. And there was a guy who was a CPAN tester who ran Solaris. Don't know who it was, but the dude's name was Chris. He ran Solaris. It was version X. The file system was type Y, and I knew who it was because of all that stuff. And he always ran it as a certain user, and he ran it in a place where he didn't have permissions to write files. So if I had a more robust test framework at that time, I would have had like test more. Test more lets you make try and skip blocks, and skip blocks basically say, we'll try this, and if this doesn't work, then skip all these tests because they're worthless to try these if this condition isn't met. Basically, if you can't write in this directory, it's pointless to try these. But when I got to that guy, I actually hard-coded a test in there for a long time to identify Chris and his stupid Solaris box somewhere out in the world, and just say, pass Chris, pass Chris's Solaris box, pass it. Because it was a zero-sum game. No way to win that one. So I cheated. I admit it. I am not ashamed. Oh, I am ashamed. I am ashamed. I'm ashamed. But we have more robust test frameworks now that let us do better things and say things like skip all these tests if something's not met. That's really useful for things that are internet connected or database. Like a database module. You're installing DBI and it'll say, hey, I can run all these awesome database tests. Do you have a database? No. Well, it's kind of not really awesome to run tests against a database module. You don't have a database, but okay, I won't run those tests because it makes no sense to do it. And that way it doesn't fall on its face. And you don't want a module to fall on its face artificially because then it doesn't install. If the module tests fail, you know that when you go to install a module from the cpan, if the tests fail, module doesn't install. So there you go. So we wanted to kind of have a discussion now, an open discussion about a few different topics. The first topic was the roadmap of talks for the next few months. The second theme that I wanted to talk about was the next generation of Perl programmers, getting interest, getting new bodies in the building, folks online. It is nice to see participation up and numbers up on our YouTube channel as well, viewers and stuff like that. Hey there.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
How many of you guys, okay, this is called a 10 show. We're looking for 100 makers to quote-unquote art on this for the open house on September 12th.
Please stand by.
So everybody's doing different things to it. How many of you guys would like to enter? So one person's making it into a phone. One person's going to be doing wires coming out of it.
Sure.
It's just showing off who you are, not the art. Like 100 makers.
I'm just not going to be back here for a good number of days. It's going to be cool.
It's due September 7th. But
Try harder.
Yeah,
I won't make that date. I'm sorry. Hey, that's some serious karate power.
So, read all these instructions. Thank you for letting me interrupt you.
Oh, wow.
Read all these instructions. If you have any questions, my email about it.
Look how many
Oh
cards.
my gosh. Throw away the little one.
Thank you. Awesome. So they're calling me, what did she call these, a 10 show?
10 inches by 10 inches.
10 inches by 10 inches. Make something with it. Okay, so standing invitation from somebody here at the Makerspace. If you want to make something out of a 10-inch piece of wood, you can do that. So, folks, we've got a mailing list. If you go to dfw.pm.org, the information is there. Please sign up. It's non-commercial. We don't spam you. There are no ads. There's nothing except for awesome discussion. And we'd like to talk about your opinions because everybody's got one, And we'd like to talk about your ideas about how we can involve and garner interest in Perl, open source, in the moral and ethical ideals behind the Perl programming language and in open source, other open source languages as well. it's not just a Pearl thing, even though, you know, our hearts and my heart is very tied to Pearl. We'd like to be able to engage the next generation and provide them with that, call it a tool chain, for their successful journey down that road. If you have ideas about that and you're listening to the broadcast, or you're hanging out on the mailing list, please send in your ideas about how you think we could engage younger folks other than dads bringing children or moms bringing children. I think that it'd be cool to have guys or gals who are coming down here mentor somebody, bring a friend, maybe an older person with dementia, who's who's not going to put up much of a fight. Just tell them, you know, there's free candy. Hey, I can say that. I'm on my way there already. I'm on my way there. I'm quickly heading down that road. It's in the genetics. I've got the genes. No, we want to involve people from all walks of life, both old and young. And then the third theme was just, you know, attendance in general, and spreading the word and getting folks engaged here as well. So, topic number 1, the meetings, presentations, the outline. I would whiteboard this out, but I don't have a whiteboard. We don't have a whiteboard
right there.
Okay, we've got a whiteboard over here.
Oh, on screen?
We can webcam it. We're going to switch to the camera. Marie, will you go and turn on the lights?
Sure.
Cool. Hey, that's actually pretty good.
I need to erase
screen.
what I drew.
No, actually, it's pretty good. Where's the markers?
The mark. There's one right here. There's not there. The green one's up there.
And the eraser was right here.
Yeah, see.
Now, you guys and the internet, everybody knows that I like to come in and pop off about stuff in our meetings. And it's not because I know everything. It's just because I'd love to hear from other people who aren't here yet. So, I eagerly await other folks to come in and contribute their talent and suggestions. You know, I am even open to ridicule folks who are watch this, you know, and then go and talk on IRC. You know, send me an email instead and make fun of me, you know, or whatever, so I can have some kind of feedback or whatever. I'm aware that I'm not an expert in everything that we talk about, but conceptually, you can see the soundness of the, you know, like tonight, the test-driven development. Not an expert, but something to say. Okay, so the way that these talks are going to go, they broaden, kind of like in a triangle. I'm trying to get this so it'll show up on the webcam, and it's not. It will. I don't want to make it.
You were good before.
You know what? I'll switch. It's this one. The way the topics work.
You can see it now.
This is Larry's hierarchy of needs. Larry Wall's hierarchy of needs. When it comes to software development, this isn't about a life cycle or anything. This is about jumping in and getting started. First, in my mind, the first thing you need is your environment. Food and shelter. Alright? Warmth, fire. You need, you've got your environment up here. What does that mean? That basically means the ability to run a shell that can do a Perl brew. aka Bash, Z Shell. You need to have something that,
Windows.
if you're on Windows, it's going to be
You can do Strawberry Pearl on Windows.
okay.
I
Well,
can't do programming.
this is the trouble with development on Windows in Perl, is that you can do an installation of Perl on Windows, and you've got your Strawberry Perl installation there. But what if you want to do a new Strawberry or an older Strawberry at the same time? Personally,
That's affordable.
it might be possible. I don't know how to do it.
It's
I
more
don't know.
work.
Is it
It's
easy?
more work.
Is
It's-
it easy? Because
Yeah, they call them the portable versions, and you can run those from a directory. It has its own. It's not installed in the path and stuff. You have to call it the executable, the Perl executable. directly
Okay.
When you run it, but
so there is a way.
there's a way.
It's a little bit more weighty.
Yeah.
See, there are plugins with the Diszilla distribution framework that will work with Perl Brew, that literally will take your distribution and you feed it the names of your brews, and it will go out and run your code against all those brews. Naked. So it will go to those brews without any libraries installed, get all the prerequisites and your library, test it all, and then go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And the cool thing about Perl Brew is you just Perl Brew use this, Perl Brew use that, and it's that easy to switch. The ability to run Perl Brew from a shell environment, to me, that really makes development easier. If you're on Windows and you're a Windows expert, send us an example of how you do that and make that happen.
It enables professional development.
Professional development?
Yeah.
I'm going to say all the professional development that I've done in Perl, and I have done a considerable amount of professional development in Perl, it's always been on Linux. It's always been on the Linux platform, because I've been able to do things like this, and people develop open source on open source. So, environment. After you've got your environment, what's next? What do you need after you've got Perls?
Understanding of the Perl base things, like how,
Understanding of Perl code base.
well, for some of like, I mean, how variables, the different variable types work, and
Perl fundamentals.
fundamentals, yeah.
Oh.
Before you jump into libraries and everything.
Yeah, internet action.
Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi. Let's put that up here. Wi-Fi at the top. That's way up here at the very top. It's a basic human need / right. Is it human rights? Wi-Fi for all?
Should be.
Darn tootin'.
Yeah.
So fundamentals. If I was giving a series of talks, I wouldn't necessarily stop to rehash over Perl fundamentals and say okay. But setting up the tool chain is kind of like the goal. But you're right, in the pyramid. So that spreads out. I mean, this is easy, it's small and focused. This is going to have more breadth. After that, I think you need an editor. Probably before.
Yeah.
Probably before you need your editor. That's enough for an entire talk, for an entire month.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'd like to pack in like 4 lightning talks, like Sublime, Padre, Vim, and Emacs. Anybody else got a favorite? Nano. Well, does anybody do Emacs? I'd like to have I know one guy who does Emacs.
Yeah.
In Ruby. He probably won't come.
Sublime / Atom.
Atom, yeah. Get editor.
So, okay.
Stuff on top of Chrome.
So, yeah. Awesome. Editor. You're set up so that you can edit code.
Learn how to use the editor.
Editor. I think after that, revision control. Git. Because Git is tightly coupled with your editor, if you have a good one, to keep track of versioning. So you have rollback. If you totally mess things up, and you've got branching and merging, and you have integration with GitHub. And when we kicked off our group and rebooted our group, the first talk we had was about Git, and I did it, and folks came thinking, we're going to have this great talk, and, disciples, that, I was going to feed the 1,000 with one loaf of bread, and I didn't do a good job. I just had a loaf of bread, and I did not do a good job of the loaves and the fishes. And I feel bad about that, because there are some people who are disappointed, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was not an expert, but I really did. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to start out the group. I'm sorry that some people had high expectations and walked away thinking, this guy's not an expert, but I'm not. We come here to have discussions together so that we can improve. Sometimes we do have presentations when we're, talking about things, and we said, we'll invite an expert. Otherwise, we're not going to say we're experts unless we're an expert. So Git, and we need to have some fundamentals. Git fundamentals, it's not that hard to get. Pull, push. Git branching gets a little bit tricky. It's not too difficult, but somebody want to check the chat? They just pinged in something.
No, that's nice.
Are you using Hangouts for your SMS?
Version 4.
Oh, did they push out the security fix?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good. Okay. I was wondering if that was going to happen. Cool. Well, I've got a Sammy phone, so kind of on my own. Get revision control. Next, after setting up your revision control, what do you think comes next? You're in the clear. So after you've got that going.
So just to be clear, Git professional. You don't need it to write a script, right? But it's a good idea, good practice. Yeah.
End point here, continuous integration. So in other words, we need to have something right here. I want to have what I want to do is I want to set up somebody's environment, the editor, Git, their tool chain, Zilla, their libraries, whatever. Then I'm going to set up continuous integration, and continuous testing, and continuous deployment. And we can't do that unless we have something to deploy, test, integrate. So once we get down here to these advanced topics that are going to be beneficial to people who are doing advanced stuff. Like I said, this spreads out, the breadth comes out down here. We are going to have to we're going to have to make some tough decisions. We're going to have, how do I sound like John Kerry at the nuclear talk? Tough decisions will have to be made, no matter how tough they are. They'll have to be tough decisions. So we'll have to make tough decisions, and we're going to have to do a distribution framework. Before the good Nick Perez left our group and went to Booking.com, he was talking about Zilla. Zilla is still awesome. Nick, if you're listening, or if you hear about this, and Zilla isn't awesome anymore, tell us what is. Because Zilla is still awesome as far as I know. And I mean, David Golden and people are still passionate on it and working on it, and as far as I know. I mean, when you go to MetaCpan, that's the stuff. So yeah, you got your distribution framework. If you go to metacpan.org, there's actually a meta package that you can install that they encourage you to install. Homework for the listener, viewer, whatever. if you go there, it's going to say, hey, you want to install this? It's called task something. Bam! So if you install that, task 10 show, you'll be on your way to here. You'll have a tool chain. If you've got task 10 show, you're going to have a tool chain that's going to get you to the point where you can start publishing stuff to the CPAN. Now, after I've got Dizilla set up here, and I've got Git going on, I want to start sending things to 2 locations. Oh my goodness! We're going to send something to the CPAN? Yes, we are. We're going to send something to the CPAN under the Acme namespace. ACME : and we're going to make something. And we're going to have our revision control. We're going to keep that repo in GitHub, just like the Perl source code, because that's what the cool kids are doing. And if that's good enough for Perl, that's good enough for me. And we're going to be pushing that out to GitHub and CPAN, and we're going to have code. What's this going to buy us? CPAN testing. The CPAN testing framework is going to be testing our code. We're going to be able to look at those results. I'm seeing an entire year in front of us, guys. An entire year of fun. So after that, after we've tackled that, it's time to tackle continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous deployment on our own. Now, I've had people mock me about the fact that continuous testing and integration with Jenkins is stupid for Perl guys because Jenkins is written in Java. Who cares? If it works good or works well and it does what it's supposed to do, then we can do that. Now, if by the time we get here somebody's written something better in Perl, cool. Maybe that's what we'll write. It'll be better. Probably not. Probably not what we'll do. But this is where I want to get, so that we get to the point where we've got a product and we're actively deploying it to a service of some kind. What should it be? I think, a simple little web app. Simple little web app called dfw.pm.org. Our website. And that would be cool. I mean, like a REST API. We could do cool stuff with it. It could be very plain and vanilla, but it's conceptual, guys. The point is to do something conceptual. Like tonight, the presentation was, what are we looking at? We've gone over by 15 minutes because I run my mouth too much. But it was simple, it was conceptual. That's all this needs to be. It doesn't need to be some grandiose code base because I'm not going to write it. It could be something very simple, a REST API. We're going to be doing code reuse, probably using modules from the CPAN like JSON, PM, and Dancer. Isn't that the cool one now? I know you like Mojo, but other people like Dancer now.
I'm sure they do.
But Dancer's the newer one.
That's cute.
See, because Dancer's 2. The Nginx. The Nginx.
Yeah, but there are people that are complaining about Nginx being too heavy now.
The OpenStack.
Thank you. What answer?
The cloud.
Now that is just rubbing salt in the wound.
So, yeah. So I'm thinking this was kind of like what I was envisioning. Does it make sense? This kind of like pathway to teaching us something from like, all right, I'm Joe user and I want to accomplish this and I want to do it in a way that is considered best practices for the industry. And by the time I'm done, I want to have layered on to myself a valuable skill set of experience with all of these tools that actual industry professionals are using. Is this a bad thing? We can cross some of these off the list if they're out.
Yeah, I keep using the word professional, right? If you're gonna like write a script to solve your problem, you need the first two things, and then the third thing you can pick up as you write it, right? If you don't know anything, you're like, I wrote this mail server 16 years ago now, and if somebody would have told me that I gotta have Git before I start and Discilla and if this is what I have to do to write my little mail script, it wouldn't have been right. So we do need to clarify. Start here, add this, add this, add this, and the more things you add, the more benefit you're getting. But it's going to be an investment in your time to get that long-term return.
It's gonna be tricky for somebody to jump in, like here and walk into class. But at the same time, like I said, the second topic that I wanted to discuss that we don't have time to discuss about bringing in more people and younger people, mentoring people and getting people exposed to Perl and open source programming languages. We're not getting a lot of new audience, in the last year. We've gotten some solid members, and we do have some participation worldwide. But most of our folks are people who are already industry professionals. I'm going to say like 99.999% of us use Perl already at work. At work, yeah, already professionally, which is why I'm here, and this is where my brain is at, because when I think about Perl Mongers, I think about how can we use Perl Mongers to help Perl Mongers? How can we use the Perl Mongers meeting to help people who come to Perl Mongers and then who take what they learn and go back to work?
Kids, professionals, right?
See, yeah, I mean it's a divergent path. So what are we going to do? I mean, what do you want? What would you like to do? I don't think we have enough attendance to do 2 tracks and say, here's our advanced class and here's our younger class. I mean, what do you want to do? I mean, if you want to focus on bringing in kids and you want to do outreach, because I can go to schools and hand out literature and go to computer science departments and say, hey, we've got these free classes, they're once a month, and here's some assignments, here's a list, and this is an open source project, we're working on these things. Here are repositories you can contribute, and you can use this in your curriculum. It's free. Yeah. We're actually not going to charge you anything for it, and the instruction's free. Right. What do you want to? Which one do you want to tackle? I mean, do you want to go this way or do you want to go that way? With the noble path, or
are there any introductory, focused engagements, right? Because if you're going to go to a school, they need a very defined short-term. You're in, you do the thing, you get out. Kids
with a certificate.
Yeah, if the kids remember something, great. If they get something out of it, great. If it's not for them, you haven't lost their attention too much, and then you go on to the next thing, right? That's how education works. So, if they are interested, they'll ask for more, right? So we could make it a thing, to design a lesson plan, basically. Short term, short focus, sit in, write a thing, but
I'm going to turn a microphone in your direction.
So, my first question would be, has that already been done? Has anybody out there actually written?
I don't think so. Perl Maven by Gabor Sabo. Forgive me, Gabor, if I have said your name incorrectly, pronounced it incorrectly. he provides the only known Perl training that I've seen that you can buy, and I've purchased his stuff. And he is really good about prolifically publishing stuff on a regular basis, but it's not oriented towards the younger generation. And I'm not going to say,
No,
I mean, it's not
it's
marketed
all-
towards them. It's marketed towards folks who are coming in at an adult.
it's an employment thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that there's not a lot of return there, unfortunately. I mean, being
Well,
pragmatic about it.
Gabor does this professionally for income, you know.
Right. No, what I'm saying is I don't think there's a lot of return for Perl in the secondary space, right? So for 12-year-old and younger, because what's the cost of entry? You got to get them Perl. So you can get them Linux for free, but that's not time free, you know. So how do you get them an environment that they can do things in, right?
Well, every single one of the kids at my children's school, what grade are you going into next year? Fourth grade and up is a Chromebook.
Can you run Perl on the Chromebook?
No?
But
Well,
so
they can't.
Are you gonna
They can't get a
Are you
Chromebook.
gonna give them VMs in the cloud? And what duration?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I would
So-
say, yeah. Just, you know, like Jeff gives you the under test, 24 hours. Maybe that'd be something that we could work on setting up. I mean,
So
do you guys see value here? It sounds like John has some interest.
Yeah, so I think one of the things
I think
that keeps
it'd be
coming up
cool.
at
I think
all
this would be
the
cool.
YAPC events is that there's no new people coming in Perl. Like it's not in fashion. Not a language that's in fashion anymore. It's doing really cool stuff, but nobody really cares. Well, especially the younger crowd, they're all doing Node and
PHP,
whatever.
Laravel, you know?
Yeah.
They figured out how to do a persistent PHP loop. Oh my gosh. Now we can have a PHP web application. Yeah. So it's not fashionable, right?
So,
For some,
but you know, like if we are going to get people interested in Perl, like you kind of have to introduce it to them and show why Perl is good. You know, still a good language. Like it's
yeah, I would.
there's a lot of new stuff in Perl that's coming the last like 5 years or something like that. Well, since the modern Perl revolution or whatever, I don't know what you want to call it, but the modern Perl movement
it's called Renaissance.
Renaissance
Yeah.
come along. I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff in Perl now, but nobody knows about it. They all know about like Perl 6
Or
Perl 5.6.
CGI.
Yeah, or
People
CGI.
think Perl equals CGI. They don't even, yeah, you're right. The majority of people that I talk to say, I'll tell them what's going on. I'll tell them, actually, the fastest scripted script interpreter right now is actually the Perl interpreter. Really? You didn't know that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it spins up faster than Python. Really? Oh yeah. Crazy the optimizations they've done to it. It's crazy, huh? You didn't know that? No, they didn't. So yeah, you were just doing all kinds of cool object-oriented stuff. I'll tell them about that. No, I didn't know Perl was doing that. No,
Right.
I have no idea. Perl equals CGI. Perl equals Perl dash I dash whatever,
Right. So aim low.
Low
If you want to go into kids, right?
Right.
Aim at what they want to do, right? So it's got to be something that they're capable of accomplishing. It can't be too drawn out, and it has to be consumable in chunks, right? So whatever that would look like. I mean, if you think about the weird issue of Microsoft Word dominance in the market, you can give somebody LibreOffice and they can give it to their kids and the kids can take it home free and they can have it forever, no license encumbrance. Like they're not stealing it. They cannot steal it, right? And you can teach them, and they can use the thing, and it's all awesome, but it doesn't happen that much, right? Because Microsoft says, well, I'll sell you a license for $3. And everybody, that's just easier. So we'll do that, right?
I have an English teacher that I've gone and helped, English teacher from when I was in my teenage years, and reconnected and went and done some helped her. She's a wonderful person. She has a lot of Word documents from previous Microsoft installation, and she was persuaded to install Ubuntu Linux and run OpenOffice for security reasons, because she was concerned about the security of her school, of the school. It is very difficult for her to open up her prior Word documents and expect the formatting that she had before. So she's almost sometimes at the point of just...
Right. It's a huge investment of your time to help her through that transition, right?
Time that sometimes I don't have.
Totally. So we can design a thing that is totally reproducible without us. I mean, that would be the goal, right? Because here, teacher in Alaska, here's a Perl, unit. You can, whatever, with your kids, right? Otherwise, what do we, is it just the circle that we can influence? The immediate circle?
So are you wanting to produce a consumable, or are you wanting to produce something
That's
here?
reproducible.
Because my original thought was that, okay, we start bringing and including people of a different type than we have typically seen in attendance here. In other words, people that are younger and youthful,
Right.
not professionals, mid 30s, mid 20s, folks who do this for a living, but people who we want to mentor. Like Google, Summer of Code, get people involved. Innovate, young minds, the future. That's what I was thinking, and get that participation going on around this table and in this room. That's what I was thinking, instead of producing something that was a curriculum that we could pass out to the world, which would be cool, like one Perl per child, OLPC. We could have one PPC, and, we could make that as a group and distribute this, and we could be so cool and do that, and, we could do that. That would be really cool as a project for us. But was that what you were envisioning?
One Perl per child is a little bit brilliant, because that would help market it, right? So, yes, I would be more interested in something that can help a lot of people than that could help 10.
They could just help a meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, John, because you are John Fields, and you are awesome. Because I was just thinking about our meeting and bringing more people to our meeting, and you're thinking about bringing Perl to the
But on the other side,
the little people, and
it's actually easier, right? Because we are project-centric workers, so we can design the thing, and we can document it, and we can build it, and we can say, here, go run this script, and it will go build you 10 Amazon instances. And as a teacher who's never had to program at all, here's your 20 steps that you got to do. It should take you 30 minutes. You'll need a credit card, and it's going to cost you maybe $10, whatever, right?
For the Amazon fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To run.
Because obviously we can't host
Micros.
virtual machines.
Right.
We can't host the virtual machines, and what we would need to do is spin them up and have them, destroyed after 24 hours, whatever.
Yeah, because you can do that, right? The micros.
Yeah, the self-destructing.
And you can actually make your image and just clone off of that, and it saves them some time. But that's the way that I think, right? Is make something that is reproducible by other people, because then the other Perl groups can take that and use it.
Well, so, I mean, could we
Does anybody think?
do like, one brokenchild.org or something like that, and like, we can still do our meeting lectures and record them like we always do. Post that,
Kind of work on
with
this for a
kind
year.
of like a lesson plan. We can always post on the site. Like you said, we can have ways for teachers to set up environments and they can either repeat what we have in our lecture or they can just play the video.
Can you say that a little louder? Dextron had something to say.
So my thought was to create a website where we post our lesson plans and have and actually like teach that lesson plan here at our meeting, and then post the video alongside those lesson plans, and then that way that if you have teachers and schools that want to reuse the lesson plans, they can watch our video, get an idea of how to teach it, or they can play the video for the students as well. Or, if they have one of those like flipped curriculums where you go home and watch the video and then come to class and
Talk about
do
it.
programming when they're in class.
Can they run a shell
What do you mean?
in their Google Chromebooks?
The kids can't. No.
I mean, sorry, a terminal.
No. I mean, that would be instant own your laptop at that point.
And is there a putty? Is there
Oh, a term SSH something.
Yeah.
There's Chrome SSH extension, but they for quite a while they let the kids and do whatever they want to do with Chrome, but then they were like at one point said, okay, you can't go to YouTube because they were letting them go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? Actually, they were letting them go to YouTube, all the kids, whatever they wanted to see. But then they started locking things down, like to go and look at the right content on YouTube.
Yeah. So that means you're probably going to be whitelisting the places they can't go.
Well, plugins and stuff
So
and such.
yeah.
And because Chrome is remote administratable, the school actually runs those Chromebooks and the Google Chrome browsers. So when you go, like when my son goes to log in, he logs into Google Chrome, the browser itself, and it says managed by whatever.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how it was.
So that's like the Raspberry Pi kit.
Hmm?
So
Oh,
Raspberry
right.
Pi like kit that could, have a little computer.
Yeah, that would be that would start to get more interesting, right? So you have a screen, you have a keyboard, you take a team of kids, I would say, 2, 3. More than that, they'll lose focus, right? And you have Perl, and you have lights, say LEDs. It's like part of the box. And when they write their programs, it causes things to happen that there's a physical output. Right.
Jesse's favorite thing was ejecting the CD player. It was shell script. Eject.
Wow. Yeah.
He just couldn't believe it.
So, but again, it's what age, and really what are you trying to teach them, right? Because there's going to be actually a bunch of money coming through the schools for computer education. So there will be competition for anything that we would, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, people would look at it as if it were competition when we don't see it that way. For my viewpoint, it's a gift.
There's a fixed amount of time in the school day. There's going to
True.
be a computer education unit or whatever they call it now. There is competition, for space. You got your Frosted Flakes, you got your Grape Nuts, right?
Well, I mean, you in one way you could say we win because we're free, but in that way, Red Hat's killing it. But I don't see it. I don't ever look. yes, from their standpoint, when I say they're an educational institution, that's how they would see it because they do have that block of time. But for me, it's a gift. It's not a product. You know, it's the same thing as any other code that I do or I donate. Any question that I answer online, I'm not asking you to donate something to pay. I don't put a PayPal donate button underneath everything that I answer online or the.
So the ultimate question is, how do we get it in front of them? And there's a lot of barriers actually, right? So
Like the Microsoft donated brand new Microsoft donated lab with all Microsoft computers and Microsoft Office, and
they had to, right? Because otherwise
they wouldn't have a computer lab.
Cost would have driven people to look for other stuff. Now they don't have to go look for other stuff, so they don't.
That's why, ITT Tech was a Microsoft university.
Yes, completely. What about the Vim Adventures? Right? You remember that?
I don't. Like, I do and I don't.
It's like vimadventure.com or something, and it's to teach you how to use Vim, and it's a kind of a side scroller. And you're a little guy on a map, and he's like, moving around, JK. Yeah,
oh,
you learn how to use Vim and to solve problems.
Oh, that's cool. Like, right? Delete it, delete. That sounds really cool, like Minecraft with Vim. That's really, really cool. I can't imagine how anybody could make Vim fun, except for like as a text editor. It's really good at what it does, but hey, Jesse, you want to use Vim?
Yeah, man.
You want to use Vim, or do you want to play a video game?
Vim-adventures.com.
That sounds awesome. It's a video game. It looks like Minecraft.
And you teaches you how to use it.
Press any key.
Yeah.
What does it say? Press any key to start.
I got stuck because it wanted me to do some kind of insert thing, and I couldn't figure out what it was asking me to do. But aside from that,
that's a really good example.
It's like, I know how to use that. So the thing is, the guys wrote this a long time ago, and then they add new levels every once in a while. But the audience for that is much bigger because of the way they do it.
I think it'd be fun for us to do that as a project. I mean, I'm definitely willing to throw effort and time behind it.
There's a caveat for me, because we just started the Homefront Router project, and
well, I mean, I can't commit a huge amount of time.
Right.
I don't have a huge amount of time.
I don't think any of us.
We have family. Every single one of us has family responsibilities.
Add in the lessons that at time we wouldn't drop everything at once, right? We would have to do this.
Sure.
One lesson at a time. Just plan out, what topics we're going to cover, and I mean, they're supposed to be small chunks, right? Like we're really consumed by younger kids.
Well, we could publish things like that initially, but a teacher isn't going to buy a half-baked curriculum.
Right, well, like if we're
they won't
volunteering to do this.
Right, they're going to look at this and say, so I've got episode 1 and that's it. That's all I can watch.
Well, I mean, we're talking about doing this over time. Like, there's no way. Like, we wouldn't start marketing it.
We would start with episode 1.
Yeah.
And there'd be a 2 eventually, and then like Khan Academy. How'd that start?
We've got to figure out. Yeah, we got to figure out a format. We got to figure out how we do it.
Now, this whole thing that we've talked about for the past 25 minutes, different than that.
It is. I mean, but I think that we all like it better than those talks that kind of serve our own interest. This is kind of a cool thing. I mean, it's not kind of a cool thing. I mean, it'd serve not just our own interest, but it would serve Pearl. It would serve Pearl, and it would also serve the little people that we like a lot.
So the people that attend these meetings are already in the Pearl Echo Chamber and know most of that.
Most likely. Well, no, they don't. I mean, a lot of people that have come, they've got some of the top three, right?
Yeah.
Because they came to learn more.
Right.
And so they came to learn some of this other stuff to help them. So, I mean, it's a total...
It's really hard to get into
split.
this unless you have dollars, because you've got to be running it on servers, and somebody's got to pay for the servers.
Yeah.
And that means the company that you work at. And so how do you work at a company and get experience with this when they want to hire people who have prior experience with this? So that's why people are trying to break that barrier. When you get here, it's difficult unless you're working independently to come into a company and say, I have experience with that.
So are we taking money away from DeWar by saying, hey, you can do this, and here's how?
What?
Well, we have a different audience.
What? Because of kids?
No, because of this.
What?
What does he teach, right? He teaches...
No, he teaches this, man.
Yeah.
He teaches Pearl fundamentals. He doesn't go down this. He doesn't go down that path, and I don't see competition there. And since when is open source subject matter? Since when does somebody own that? And I mean, a man very near and dear to my heart as far as respect goes. I respect his work. Everything that he's done is a gift to the community, because we all benefit when somebody puts something out there like that.
Well, Ken, who does teach that, is boy, right? Big time.
What? The
Also-
rest of the roadmap?
Yeah.
I see him get this far. Nobody. I have not seen anybody get this far,
That is
except for like special
private consulting.
private consulting. At that point, you're talking about people who have gone
And
seriously.
that's where he makes a lot of his money.
That's when people get aboard the USS Enterprise. All right? And that's why I wanted to get here in our talk series. And the only way to get there is to start here, so that you have something to run through these engines. But if we start making something like what we're discussing, and we do it right, we're going to have to do it from here to here anyway.
So I'm okay with focusing on stuff for kids, which means that this part of it will suffer, but that's okay with me. The thing that I would want to hash out is, what is the hook, right? What gets the kids to pay attention to it?
Well,
What they get out of it?
we have test subjects.
We sell on benefits, yes.
I have some test subjects that are prime, age. They're right there. Do you like this? And we can watch to see how long they sit in front of it, and how many of these we have to feed them to get them to stay there. Here's a Snickers.
So,
Um,
yeah. Raspberry Pi, GPIOs, boxes with candy. You have to program to open the boxes with candy.
oh man, a lesson that makes the laser cutter run. You know how Jesse's hair would just stick straight up out of interest and glee. If he could write a Perl program to make the laser cutter, do something.
I don't know.
But it's probably only got a Python API. I don't know. Who cares? That's the thing about some of the Rackspace stuff for OpenStack. They say, well, if you want to get started with Rackspace, download our Python API, or so you can talk to our Python API. I'm like, you know what? It's JSON.
Yeah.
If I want to write a Perl application to talk to OpenStack, I will. Or whatever I want, actually. It's not going to be Python if I don't want it to be Python. It's going to be whatever I want. It's kind of silly but they want to keep it uniform, and that's great. But it's not great at the same time. There's more than one way to do it. And that's something that I saw on Google Plus the other day, was that this guy wrote the Zen of Python programming and published it. It's probably been circulated who knows how many thousand times. And one of them says there's preferably one and only one very obvious way to do anything. And that's when I answered, have you taken your Prozium today? Because in the movie, it was the emotional suppressant drug that they gave everybody in the dystopian society so that they didn't feel or disobey or do anything on their own, and so that they just comply. In other words, it's like, here, just comply. We have a debugged loop. It's as fast as things will ever get fast. It's as innovative as things will ever get innovated. You will never do better. You will never go further. You will never jump higher. You will never improve. What is that? What is there is only one way to do it?
That's dystopian.
It's dystopian. It's dystopian. It's dystopian. It's not Zen. And yeah, so I'd love to be able to bring Perl to Gen 2. By Gen 2, I mean Generation 2, not Gen 2. Gen 2 already, Gen 2 only saw it. I wrote you a Perl program. It even worked, Maureen. All you had to do was hit the enter key.
Ah.
You wanted a snicker? So we gotta, I guess we have, we gotta figure out, because I think next steps will be identifying the things that cursory computer science programs are going to expect a student to master by the time they exit the course. What do you need to know? When I approach those, when I approach those questions, I think, all right, data types, or sorry, variables, data types, loops and controls, subroutines, objects, methods, attributes, going on from there. There's probably a better order and a lot that I missed in between there. But we would have to, identify the things that teacher wants student to know by the time they're finished. When I was a little kid, we wrote a program that made this little mouse do a circle around the monitor. And then if we could do that, get it to go around the CRT like 3 times in a circle, then we had done the math right, and we could play Oregon Trail. You have died of dysentery. I always died of dysentery. I never got. I don't think I even got. I never even got anywhere. Maybe 2 miles before I died of dysentery. Can you play that anymore? There's got to be an emulator somewhere.
I think there's like
Got to be an emulator somewhere.
it's gotta be Oregon Trail Extreme.
Oregon Trail Extreme. You have died of extreme dysentery. You have extremely died of extreme dysentery. Oregon Trail Extreme. They've got the T-shirt that says that you have died of dysentery. I don't think I could wear it to work though.
So you go to SourceForge. There is Oregon Trail Extreme.
You are kidding.
No.
You are kidding, John.
Ever played the Oregon Trail as a kid? Yeah, pretty much everyone has. But now it's way outdated and a little immature. So what's the answer? Oregon Trail Extreme. This game is based on the original, but is aimed at a more adult audience. And there's a website. It's GPL version 2.
So it's 3D.
And
You can have dysentery in 3D.
Oh, from 2004. It was written in visualbasic.net. Wah, wah, wah. 0 downloads.
Sorry.
It was last updated in 2013.
That's cool.
So if you have a Windows thing, no files. Wow. So apparently it was updated in 2013, but there are no files.
Touch 2004.tbz. I don't know. That sounds extreme.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Like Super Tux. Have you ever played Super Tux? the remember the Flying Penguin game in 3D? You get on.
Supertext.github.io. Two-dimensional platform gamer.
There's a 3D. I guess it is kind of 2D, but basically you slide on your stomach and you're Tux the penguin, and you go down this kind of luge or snow or whatever course, and you just kind of you'll jump, and when he jumps, he's like,
I don't think they can see that.
what? Oh well, yeah, but you can hear it. It's kind of like he jumps and he goes.
It is very silly. Yes.
Just check it out. Try it out yourself. I'm pretty sure you can run it on Windows. Yeah. Super Ducks.
All right, 9 10 till.
So I'll fly some stuff out on the mailing list. Some, I guess, call for next steps.
Yeah.
Are you on the mailing list?
Yeah.
Cool.
Can I plug my project?
Why not? I mean, you're kind of like the list admin.
No, like right now.
Plug the project.
Homefrontrouter.com. It's going to be a replacement router that enables people to support families or small groups of people, and it automates almost everything that you can do to a home network. It brings enterprise grade support to a home network, and among the things that are planned for it is using Guacamole, which is a DNC and RDP proxy. So you go to a web page as the computer guy, shall we say, or girl as it were, but they see the list of like households. Here's mom's house, here's Aunt Betty's house, and they got the PCs and the tablets and the Roku and everything that's on the network. And if you need to remote control from your HTML5 browser Aunt Betty's PC because she just called you about a thing, you do that. You just click it, and hey, right? And all that's got to be on her box is like DNC. And it's all wrapped up in a mesh VPN.
DNC's having so much problems right now on Plymouth-driven desktops on Linux.
Yeah.
RHEL 7, Debian 8,
which is funny
Fedora
because
22.
it's all Tiger, right? And Tiger is sufficiently maintained now by mostly Red Hat.
Yeah, it's Red Hat DNC. You can't even get it on other distros. You can use X11 DNC, and DNC just it's so solid, and it has so many breakthroughs.
Yeah, but this is designed for home.
Awesome.
Right? And one of the interesting things that we're thinking about doing with this is because it has a mesh VPN in it, and you can connect house to house. So if mom and Aunt Betty want to share pictures, you actually just map a drive over to Aunt Betty, and you can control that with a real simple HTML5, control panel thing.
File sharing.
Just through the VPN, right?
Cool.
But if you're the computer person and you need to help them set up their Chromecast, right? The Chromecast, when you first power it on, if you've ever set one of these things up, it throws up an SSID. It says, "Hi, I'm a Chromecast." You have to be there physically within radius of the Chromecast signal so that you can connect to it and then tell it, this is our network and here's the credentials where you can connect to our network, and then it switches over to be on the home network, right? Well, if you're not there, how can you do that? Through the magic of the Homefront router. So we're going to take the access point, Damon, and you can also run client mode, and then we're going to tunnel that through the VPN in a VLAN out to some other one of our boxes, because you say, I'm going to get in this setup Roku mode, and then she powers up the Chromecast, and you're on your phone, you go, yeah, there it is, tappy, 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 tap. So you're 100 miles away, but in their Wi-Fi space. I don't know of any product right now that can do that.
Sounds awesome.
So
So how far along are you on your idea?
we don't have any code committed to GitHub yet, but we're assembling the stack of products, the open source stuff. Everything in it is open source. And after we've got it where it'll actually work, then we're going to sift through the overlap of the different licenses. But we just want it to work first. And it's 100% open source so that whoever is the computer support person, they'll set up a VPS, which is their like management console, and then they have to buy a box, which is a banana pie, and they put that as the gateway for this house and this house and this house. Once they've done that, then you can centrally control them, because what does grandma know about her Wi-Fi or her router, or that she needs to, IP tables ban all of China? She doesn't know that. So you go, yes, ban foreign IPs. Just drop them. Yes, Valform packets with the kernel module, click. And then the Guacamole, which is the project that takes VNC or RDP, the frame buffer outputs, and then it basically turns them into a PNG stream. So it's just sending the deltas. It's kind of like an animated GIF, but it's PNG, but it's super fast compared to a straight VNC stream. I think it's as fast as an RDP stream, but the thing is, you can you got your web page, and you can have these little tiles, thumbnails, which are the live video stream from these client computers.
Oh, wicked!
You go, give me that one. Okay, I'm going to send a file to this one. Right? So
that's awesome.
We've got a couple guys that just came back from DEF CON that are helping us, because it's a security device, right? It's a router. So we're being very careful to make sure that it's not less secure than the D-Link that they could buy. But they're already going to be more secure than the consumer stuff, just by default, right?
By virtue of the fact that there's not a pre-built backdoor.
Yeah. So anyway, that is a Homefront Router project, homefrontrouter.com. There's Google groups for it. You can go read up on what we've been thinking, the direction we're going, and there's a lot to say about it. There's actually a commercial aspect down the road. Because like after it's the guy supporting his family, computer guy, computer girl supporting their family, and this is saving them a bunch of time. You know what I would love to do? I would love to buy one for my aunt, who is in Duncanville, who is an hour drive from me, never to drive out there. I would love to put one of these in, right? And when she goes to buy an HP printer, and you plug it in, there's ARPWatch going, hey, there's a new Ethernet device on the network. Who should I tell? Right? And so you get a text saying, there's an HP device plugged into the network. And maybe you can work it down to, and there's Nmap going to be running, by the way, looking for open ports and stuff like that, so you can categorize the devices for you. Because when you hit your portal, your webpage portal, it tells you everything that it can see, everything that's been going on in that house, just like in one little page. And if you want to remote control that thing, click here. If it has a web server, click that link, and it makes sure the tunnel's open, and then you're talking to that printer, you configure it, right?
So I'm thinking you haven't done anything in Mojolicious for this yet, have you?
No.
You've started a Mojo app for this already.
That's
I know
the
you
idea.
have.
Well, it's all up here right now, because it's
That'd be really cool. I mean, it'd be small.
It's a little schizophrenic, right? Because you need to have a local interface for at least some of this, right? But one of the cool things that one of the members is talking about, well, one of them's talking about doing a cell phone board. So, daughter board. So you can, if the main Ethernet goes down, like
Yeah.
the internet's down, then it can fall back to that as a command and control. Or
They
maybe,
have.
maybe you get the 4G chipset, and then you can just route out that temporarily. Right?
There are routers that have that stuff that are used
Sure.
in medical facilities right now.
Sure.
So I've actually.
T-Mobile
Yeah.
has lifetime. You buy the SIM, but then it's $0 a month if you stay under 200 or 400 megabytes, right? So if it's just command and control, put the SIM in there, and then it never cost you anything until you need it. And when you need it, it's sitting there, right?
Then your telco files though, and then all your licensing and it just got Oracle, I mean,
From a daughter board? No, that's
they're
the
gonna
perfect, because what you would use is you use the AT mode off the chipset, so it looks like a modem. It looks like it's a serial port, right? Nice and clean.
You're saying, you put somebody like T-Mobile on there, they're gonna say it's ours now,
They can't do that with your phone. All you're getting from them is a SIM, right? Or you go to Ting, get a SIM card from them. Go to somebody else, get a SIM card from
Got your
them.
patent war chest ready?
No, it's up to them. And besides, that is what they call the CAA, right? It's the Common Access Arrangement, and that thing is what's licensed to the FCC. So there's IP that you're paying for in that chip. You just get the connection.
Yeah.
It's like if you were going to plug something into the PSTN here, you get the DAA, which is a similar thing, and that little brick is licensed, and it has power and audio coming out of it, and it totally abstracts you legally and technically from the public switch telephone network. At any rate, yeah. So that, and there's a whole slew of Wi-Fi enabled smart switches, right? The little thing you plug into the wall socket, and you got an app on your phone. The Wi-Fi controls this on off. So you know how DOCSIS cable modems are always dying? You just have to power cycle them just because. This box can do that automatically for you because it's the Wi-Fi access point, and it knows it's there. The whole thing revolves around the D-Link thing that you buy has such a small processor. They're trying to squeeze so much profit, out of it by shaving 2 cents at a time. And this is a 1 gigahertz dual core, 1 gig of DDR3 ARM processor, right? It's hot shoe compared to what you're used to. So we don't have to do an embedded stack. We have a straight up Debian. We go to the Debian repos for code. We can do whatever we want. And that should make the assembly time of all the pieces better. So yeah. And it is an open source project, and anybody can assemble and use all of it or none of it. And we're just making it easier for us by having one target for now, which is the Raspberry Pi the Banana Pi router R1, which has 5 gigabit Ethernet ports on it, and BGN 300 megabit, and with the Nemo. So it would cost you about $70 to get a kit from China. It's got the board and a plastic case and antennas, and they usually throw in some little aluminum heatsink things and stick on those big chips. So what we expect is that this has been out for 10 months, I think, this board. So they're going to cycle it and have Rev 2. As soon as they do that, we're hoping they'll have AC. And at that point, it should be a good enough jumping off point. We also expect it's going to be quad core and have access to more RAM. So we shall see. So anyway, that's what I've been doing with my spare time.
Someone who's got some spare time.
That,
Oh.
but I want it. So, but the central console, the server part, that I want to write in Mojo.
You could doctorize all the little microservices, make it easier to
I was thinking about that. Yeah, because I need to provide a pattern for people to replicate the server, right? So. Yeah. No, I've been thinking about that.
and then you can control how all the different services talk to each other, what gets exposed from, to the phone, and whatnot.
That's, yes. Because it's a security device. I mean, think about it. If you're a hacker, what would you love more than to tap into a network that has 5 families where they could be at differing levels of connectivity, right? But the automation should let you go in and lock down as many machines as we can teach it about. So anyway, that's my project.
So that's the open source Saturday
Yeah.
project.
Yep.
Wrapping it up, thanks for everybody who came, thanks for everybody who watched online, and I'd like to invite you to come out again next month on the second Monday. And we'll be tossing information out on our Google Plus account and on our mailing list. Go to dfw.pm.org for information about how to connect with us there. And we'll be talking about the one Perl per child idea that we're going to be working on, apparently. So that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun and for a lot of benefit. Hope we get a lot of bang for that. Thanks.